As the night sky falls upon Singapore, the drama really starts to come alive. Welcome back to Zoom Racing League for yet another instalment of the X Division. And as we close in on the conclusion to this season, we perhaps determine and define a champion. But under the lights here in Marina Bay, which played host to a thrilling qualifying session early on, we prolong that drama. We prolong that excitement. And in the form of Zoom Racing League, well, nothing is off the table. We do have a longer qualifying format tonight, a bit more akin to real life Formula One. But in this first qualifying session, the drivers are expected to retire from Q1 so that we can quickly progress onwards to qualifying 2. So we're just waiting for every driver to retire from the session. So then let's hope, if that's going to be the case, that more drivers are going to retire and that we can progress onto qualifying 2 rather swiftly. So then we're just adding to the tally of drivers who have retired from this session. We have 5 more to retire. So then, while we're waiting for the drivers just to end Q1, I think it's worth talking about the setting for tonight's race. Marina Bay, which played host to Formula One's first ever night Grand Prix back in 2008. It morphed into what we know now as one of the most infamous Grand Prix in history, Crashgate, where Nelson Piquet crashed out deliberately to nearish to the start of the Singapore Grand Prix, allowing Fernando Alonso, who started well outside the top 10 due to problems in qualifying, it allowed the Spaniard to cruise home to race victory, Renault's first win since the 2006 Japanese Grand Prix, so nearly 2 years for the Enstone outfit, and Fernando Alonso claiming his first win since his bitter divorce from McLaren, the first time round. Ever since we have had some thrilling races as well around this circuit, 2010 saw an epic duel between Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel, the 2 drivers which would end the campaign at the very top of the drivers' standings. Alonso just about fending off the Red Bull driver to his second win in 3 years around the Marina Bay circuit. In 2012, we had Lewis Hamilton retiring from the lead. We had Sebastian Vettel taking race victory. Then in 2013, we saw one of the most demonstrably dominant wins of the modern era. Sebastian Vettel seizing pole from his garage and then winning the race by over half a minute. Racing away from a distant pack that just had no answer to his excellence, not only in that race, but in that season as well. This was one of Vettel's 9 consecutive Grand Prix wins to the tail end of the 2013 season. In 2016, we had Nico Rosberg and Daniel Ricciardo pushing flat out to the very end of the Grand Prix. And it was Rosberg taking his first and only victory around Singapore as Ricciardo, who made an extra pit stop using the grip and his speed and his potential, closed in on Rosberg, but not close enough. 2017, well, who can forget that race start, that crash between Sebastian Vettel, Kimi Raikkonen and Max Verstappen, with Fernando Alonso being caught in that tussle as well. It gave rise to Lewis Hamilton's smooth victory around Singapore, his 3rd win on the streets of Marina Bay. 2018, well, that lap, that godly lap from Lewis Hamilton, taking pole on a 1:36.015 ahead of Max Verstappen, ahead of his title rival Sebastian Vettel. And that gave him a clean ride to race victory the following day. And the last Singapore Grand Prix to date was the scene of Sebastian Vettel's final Grand Prix victory. We hope not to date, but with his career soon being concluded, it may just be that the 2019 Singapore Grand Prix, where Vettel leapt from P3 to P1 through an epic pit stop phase, a thrilling outlap, he went on to take victory at the Singapore Grand Prix, his first win of 2019, his only win of 2019. And unfortunately, he has not been able to replicate that success ever since. So then we're just waiting for Stars FPS to retire from the session so we can continue on. And yes, indeed, we do carry on then. So no one set a time. Hopefully, we can just progress. Oh, okay. Seems like we are going to be restarting the lobby. Seems like we've had a few problems with the lobby so far, so we are going to be restarting it. So then, just stick with us. We will be leaving this lobby and joining a new one. So just a little bit of a delayed start, unfortunately, but we will plough on nonetheless. Okay, many apologies, guys. I will have to be leaving just for 5 minutes. I'll just have to quickly do something. But when I do, well, the stream will still be on, but I will be leaving in a minute. So, yeah, the stream will still be on. So don't worry about that. I will just not be able to give commentary for about 5 minutes, but I will be back as soon as I can, and I will be able to communicate with you the means of which qualifying progresses. So then, one and all, I am back. Yes, indeed, I am back. So we rejoin this qualifying session, as we rejoin this qualifying session in the hands of Cushing in the Ferrari, coming through the final couple of corners as the sole remaining car on the circuit, as everyone else has retired. He publishes a 1:46.320. So he now retires and we progress on with qualifying into Q2. So it's pretty decent timing. If there was probably not a better time for me to leave, we've still got the stream on and we can advance on with proceedings with 2 more qualifying sessions to be completed. And of course, the 31 lap Singapore Grand Prix ahead of us. So under the lights, we really have got the lights, the camera and the action hopefully soon going. So then, let's quickly, while we're waiting for Q2, while we're waiting for Q2, let's have a quick look at the championship standings and let's see, well, I'll tell you the answer, but let's see how Dublin can win the championship tonight. As sent to me by Cushy, so thank you so very much, Cushy. Dublin needs to outscore Shry by 25 points, and he needs to outscore Weil by 9 points. So, for example, to outscore Rich Shry by 25 points, Cushy, Dublin would have to win the race, and Shry would have to finish in 11th. Weil would have to finish in 2nd if Dublin was to win today for the championship to go on to the next race. But we will keep you informed through the event of how everything is going to fare out. But now the action really starts to get going. 14 drivers will be contesting this qualifying session. We will be eliminating the bottom 4. And we will find our top 10. We'll battle it out for pole here at the Singapore Grand Prix. Logan in the Haas coming out on track as the lead driver out on track. And he is going to power across this 5-kilometre circuit. Getting very close there to the walls was Logan. But this is an outlap. You don't want to be taking any liberties, and any track limit infringements will be rather forgotten, as this is just a search lap for the grip, for the potential, and just for the drivers to get their eye in. So we ride on board with Logan and through the Anderson Bridge, where we saw Marcus Ericsson crash out of the Singapore Grand Prix in 2017, and now onto one of our DRS straights with Logan demonstrating the rear wing opening, and he comes towards the final sector then, where laps can be won, laps can be lost, and fortunes can be defined. All our drivers want to be defining success around Singapore tonight, but their means of achieving it may not only vary, but may be enthralling and clash as well. So, Logan has 23 corners ahead of him. He'll be contesting each of those 23 corners as he gets us going here in qualifying, arriving at turn 1. Now into turns 2 and 3. It seems relatively crisp from Logan. He's now going to be approaching turn 5. Turn 4 is rather pink. Turn 5 is rather obviously a full-on corner, but Logan opening DRS and raging down Raffles Boulevard and on towards past the kink of turn 6, on towards turn 7. Danny Kvyat crashing out in this complex in 2017. Logan really chucking in the front ends, the rear ends complying. The Haas is such a sight as we get the speed up and as we get the action going here in qualifying. Oh, a bit of understeer there from Logan. He's really having to tame a bit of a beast that is difficult to handle. Now down through turn 13 onto the DRS straights with the rear wing open, and he's hunting down turn 14. Can he get it sent in? He can. Can the rear ends comply? It will. With 1/3 of this lap to go, Logan just wants to see how this first effort rewards him. You see the corners coming thick and fast. Logan rising to the challenge. He has 2 more apexes to complete and a lap time to find. He will cross the line within the 1:39s. It's a 1:39.719. That's the first time in this qualifying section so far. Our championship leader, our perhaps champion-elect in Dublin, is going to come round the final couple of corners. As Big Mama Frank displaces Logan, Dublin will displace the pair of them. A 1:38 flat by over a second. He has the advantage over his rivals, Technic Speedy, slotting into P3. With multiple drivers on laps there, and Aero in the Aston Martin. It seems like he was glitching there a little bit, and that could have been rather hair-raising, let's say. But Rigraff through the final couple of corners now. The Alfa Romeo, the rear end stepping out there off of the exit, I believe, of turn 19. But Rigraff crossing the line, he will climb to the front row. 8 and a bit tenths behind Dublin. But it is still the Red Bull setting the pace here in Singapore. ItZY, one of the pretenders perhaps to Dublin's Singapore throne. Can he really eat into Dublin's championship advantage? Is it obvious that Dublin will win the championship? The favours stack against him. You can see, I think that is, Logan spinning, dropping the rear end off of the exit of turn 18. And thankfully he goes to the dip as ItZY swept past him. And you can see there the Alpine setting a lap time good enough for the front row, 2/3 of a second behind Dublin, who is still imperious out in front. Technic Speedy carrying so much speed into turn 18. He almost hit the wall, which he's already got front wing damage, but that could have been more there for the AlphaTauri had he scraped that wall or hit that wall in a more profound way than he already did. So then, Leo Kreitis has set 1 lap time, he sets another and improves, but only in terms of pace. He does not improve beyond the P7 that he holds. And now Drabispor in the Aston Martin. The green machine looking to glitter under the lights here in Singapore. And the rear end really stepping out of line off of the exit of turn 3, arriving into turn 5. The scene of Rubens Barrichello's crash in qualifying in 2009. Rigraff, Cushy, setting a lap time good enough for the second row, but Drabispor through the first sector looking blisteringly quick. A glint of greatness underneath the floodlights here in Singapore. Could Drabispor be about to publish it through sections of track which demand just so very much from the driver? Drabispor looking to rise beyond his limits, rise beyond his competitors, and bring about pole position. You can really hear the rear ends not being put down in a permanent way in the liking of Drabispor, but the Aston Martin still pushing and still going strong into the 3rd sector now, heading towards the bridge at turn 18 and turn 19, where Felipe Massa met the wall in 2008, where Valtteri Bottas met the wall in 2019. Through every single corner, there is a hazard. There is a potential to have a crash. The quality of our drivers, though, shine beyond those mistakes. And there is Draversport setting a lap time good enough for 6th place as CVTX Mask climbs to the 2nd row. Just about a second beyond Dublin's pace. But he is gathering competitiveness is the McLaren. Aidao then on a lap in the Silver Arrow. Weil on a lap in the Red Bull. Weil approaching 2/3 distance of this circuit. Stretching it over just over 5 kilometres. The Marina Bay circuit is a real challenge for the drivers. It's physical, it's intense, it's demanding. Our drivers are learning why and are regarding its value. In real life Formula One, most races inch towards 2 hours distance. It's not the longest track on the calendar, but the speeds aren't so high, so that means the lap is longer. And with 61 laps to be contested in real life Formula One, it means that the time is very, very close to the 2 hour limit. But while I was talking about that's Weil improving to the front row is Logan, who had the most hellish of Mexico City Grand Prix last time out, is without a front wing off of the exit of turn 5. Perhaps a moment of oversteer sending him into the concrete wall, and without a front wing aero though. On a lap, Aidao nearing the completion of his first competitive lap, and as he crosses the line, he slots himself just about into the top 10. Remember that we will be eliminating our bottom 4 from this session with 14 drivers. We want to be finding our top 10, so drivers from 11th downwards will be eliminated, and at the moment those positions are occupied by Logan, Leocritus, Errol and Drunk X6, but 2 of them are on a lap. One of them is without a front wing, and one of them is just heading out on track. So here is Drunk X6 heading towards the Anderson Bridge. You have to be just so precise on corner entry, and you can see there a moment of hesitation turning in can really cost you around this circuit. Yellow flags out on track as Technic Speedy looks to approach it, and in a violent way he spins around. He will look to escape damage, he will hope to escape damage, but it seems like there that Weil may have just been in his way. Aero trying to take evasive action. But that could have been a very, very nasty moment for the Aston Martin. So Drunk X6 then will look to demote the Aston Martin to the bottom of the leaderboard. The Haas rounds the 22nd and 23rd corner of this circuit, and it's a lap time only worthy of 13th place. Leocritus in the Ferrari, not currently on a push lap. Big Mama Frank in the Alpha Tauri, improving through the first third of the lap with just north of 3 minutes left in this qualifying session. Any driver at risk will have to set their lap time soon. You would have to say, really, the drivers from 5th downwards may be in a spot of bother, more so Technic Speedy and Aidao, and Technic Speedy is heading out on track behind the Haas of, it seems, Logan. So they will look to strengthen their chances of continuing on in this qualifying session. Big Mama Frank through the middle sector, half a second up. We have Dublin, we have Weil, the pair of Red Bulls retiring from Q2. They feel safe. They feel safe. And we'll hope at least that an upturn in track grip and track evolution will not curtail their chances here in qualifying. But Big Mama Frank, who currently lies in P7, will fancy his chances of improving his position, improving his lap time, and he does just that, improving to third place, the second row. Of course, we have Q3 coming up, but the AlphaTauri running within the wheel tracks now of a Red Bull 1-2 has shown speed and competitive speed. He edges ItchRai by just under 2/100ths as Drunk X6 retires from the session, and that will consign him to a Q2 elimination here in Singapore. So we have many drivers on our out lap. We have Leo Kreitis in P9 on a push lap. Through Raffles Boulevard then for Leo Kreitis with DRS wide open and with a 2 millisecond improvement through the first third of the lap. He may be uncomfortable in P9. He may feel the mercy of his rivals breathing down his neck. But the prancing horse looking to stabilise those nerves under the lights here in Singapore. Look how much speed, just how much speed he's carrying then into turn 10. He continues on then towards the end of the second sector with just moments to go in this qualifying session. Leo Kreitis still improving, but still only just about finding an improvement. And as he puts down the power off of the exit of turn 14, the lap is thrown away. The rear tyres crying out loud for grip, for potential. And they give in, and Logan once again finding the wall with a shredded front wing and with no potential to improve into Q3. Logan, just like Drunk X6, will not be featuring in our top 10 shootout. Both Hasses out of the session. We have Aero last on the leaderboard at the moment. He will look to improve. Oh, hesitation going through the Anderson Bridge. He thought he may have clipped the wall if he turned in any sharper through the middle sector. It doesn't seem as competitive as he may want. Is it ItchRai now within touching distance of Dublin? That's the first lap time we have seen that may just trouble the Red Bull, the championship leader. Big Mama Frank still out on track. CVTX mask coming into the pits. And we have Cushy with no improvement to be found with a track limits violation. But these are the drivers to watch out for. Adao and Aero. Aero in the Aston Martin coming through the final couple of corners then. Can he, just can he, improve into Q3? Oh, he misses out there. He misses out by 0.8 of a second, but it's an improvement. It's a lap time for Aero, and he will look to gather momentum and confidence around this marina-based circuit as Adao, in a last gasp attempt, improves to P3 and eliminates Leo Kreitis from qualifying. As the prancing horse looked, dreamt and thirsted ItchRai not to improve, the Alpine, with the weight of hope resting upon his shoulders, delivered at the Ferrari's expense. So then, the shuffle of the order being made at the conclusion of our Q2 session. We will progress on to Q3, a 10-way scrap for pole position. And while it seemed Dublin may be in a league of one in qualifying, ItchRai is just troubling him. Just about. We could be on for a gripping pole fight. And let's see who can deliver. So then, don't go anywhere, as our final chapter of qualifying is ready to be written. this is the time in which our drivers will have to fulfill their potential. Around one lap, across 23 corners, and spanning across 5 kilometres. There is no ifs or buts. Now is the time to deliver your potential. This is the time to realise your ability and tremble. Tremble teasingly across this tarmac. The drivers head out onto the track and will look to get their speed not only up to perfection but up to their potential. As a 12-minute qualifying shootout for pole position commences, who can seize the initiative? It's Shrine Dublin were our front runners in Q2. Dublin edging its Shrine by 1.5 tenths, which across 5 kilometres is not a lot at all, but Dublin is in the box seat. He has the form and he's almost clipping into the wall there. That may just unsettle him for a brief moment. But we ride on board with the Red Bull then through the Anderson Bridge. He looks to crown himself a champion. Does Dublin. Like Max Verstappen this weekend, it could be Red Bull delight in Singapore. But while Max Verstappen had a problem or two in qualifying which thwarted a possible and probable pole position, Dublin will hope that no one and nothing gets in his way. As he runs behind his teammate on the road, he will look to overcome his teammates and overcome the field. This could be his stage to ultimate supremacy. And that stage is perhaps ready to start being built with this qualifying lap for 5 kilometres across this Marina Bay circuit. Arriving then into turn 1, how sharp is he with the front end? He rides the curve, he caresses the curves so very well, does Dublin. It looks so smooth. He arrives at turn 5 with a purpose to be asserted. He puts down the power, he opens DRS and he chases through Raffles Boulevard, and through the end of the first sector he eclipses the first sector time of his teammates. And this is where it gets really tight, really twisty. A brief lock-up towards the front end of that Red Bull, but as he winds through turns 8 and turns 9, it's a sight. It really is a jaw-dropping sight, a master at work. Approaching the Anderson Bridge now, again he rides the curves just so very cleanly. Precision at its absolute finest so far for Dublin. With DRS wide open, he's now going to chase down turn 14. It wasn't the quickest middle sector we have seen so far though, and it could be a battle between the two bulls for pole position. Through turn 16 and through turn 17 on towards turn 18 and 19 underneath the bridge. The direction change is such a sight. His speed is such a standard. And as his teammate Weil will cross the line setting a 1:37.7, that's a competitive lap, but it is overcome and dethroned by Dublin by 1/4 of a second. Weil ran him close, but Dublin had a response. It's Try. Can he be the party popper around Singapore as Dublin closes in on championship glory? Can It's Try stop him? Through the final corner, can he get ahead of one of the Red Bulls? He can't get ahead of either of the Red Bulls. P3 for the moment for the Alpine. And Red Bull, locking out the front row provisionally, are going to hold their breath as the challengers rein in as Big Mama Frank to the front row, splitting the two Red Bulls. And it's a Red Bull powertrains 1, 2, 3. Rig Raff crosses the line. He is onto the second row. Traverspor through the final sector now, carrying so much speed into turns 18. Cushy up into P5. It's Try really struggling on that lap. A second down on Dublin. And that may be a problem if he wants to delay Dublin's triumph. Trabzonspor up into the top 5. CVTX Mask in the McLaren. And he slots himself nicely onto the second row. A top 3 start provisionally for the McLaren. That is a mighty attempt. The top 3 separated by less than 0.2 of a second. The top 4 separated by 1/4 of a second. This is closer than what we thought it would be. This was more tense, this was more nail-biting than we perceived it could ever have been. And this is 6 minutes to determine the grid for our Singapore Grand Prix here in Zoom Racing League. And what a thrilling ending to qualifying we could be realising. Seems like no one else is on a push lap, as I'm pretty sure everyone will be coming into the pits at the end of this lap. But like I said, Dublin, the championship leader, on pole position ahead of Big Mama Frank. CVTX Mask third for McLaren, then Weil, then Rigraff. Trabzonspor sixth ahead of Cushy and Ditchry. Adal, the lowest runners of the registered lap time so far, with Technic Speedy in 10th without a lap time so far. So it seems like Trabzonspor is, yes, he will be coming into the pits. And he will stop on his mark. CVTX Mask in the McLaren will also come into the pits. So with one run completed and one more run to be completed, we see who can conquer the rest around Singapore. So then, some drivers already heading out onto the track for their second attempts. And that is surprising because the track evolution, which is so noticeable around this marina-based circuit, being a street circuit, so not being used that much, you would want the absolute best of the track conditions. And of course, as we have no red flags in this lobby or in this game, and as the yellow flags aren't really enforced, it's surprising to see the drivers heading out on track early. Maybe not for Technic Speedy, who has not set a lap time yet, but certainly for Weil. Maybe he wants to quell the deficits he has to his teammate, and maybe he is hoping, praying for pole position around Singapore. So let's follow his 23 corner attempt to pole position, to supremacy in Singapore in this shootout session. Weil down the start-finish straight, trying to open up turn 1 as much as possible, getting the front end turned in, riding the curb swiftly into turn 3. Looking relatively crisp so far from Weil through turn 4 into turn 5. And the rear end just about getting loose there, but he recovered it well through Raffles Boulevard with DRS wide open. He will clear the first sector, and he's not improved through the first third of the lap, running very, very close to the track limits through the exit of turn 7, but through turns 8 and 9 now. Every corner there is speed, there is potential to be found. Is Weil going to find it though? Towards the Anderson Bridge. This part of track has been revised through the years around the Singapore Grand Prix. Weil though, looking to be as smooth as possible, tapping the wall there slightly. He will hope that will not derail his exit through the exit of turn 13. And again, he's not finding an improvement. This qualifying session is going as far away from planned as possible for Weil. He sees his teammate and champion-elect on provisional pole, and Weil is not going to be improving. He's invalidated his lap time by cutting the corner of turn 17. His chance is over. His hopes of pole are over. And the baton is passed onto his competitors, who will look to dethrone Dublin on these final laps. So while coming into the pits, Wile's session is done and he retires from the session. Cushy in 7th place for Ferrari. Waving the flag for Ferrari then, with only one car in Q3, Cushy will look to at least have a say amongst the top running positions. After spinning out of the lead in Mexico City last week, he wants to overcome the agony and he wants to live the feeling of success in Singapore through turn 13. Seemed a little bit conservative on exit and into turn 14, and he's not improving, is the Ferrari. It's Shry then starting a lap. This is critical. This is crucial for It's Shry. Dublin at the moment can feel championship glory getting closer and closer to him. And It's Shry through Raffles Boulevard. He lies down in P10. He will hope to improve. Adal in P7. Technic Speedy P2 ahead of Big Mama Frank. AlphaTauri now 2nd and 3rd. So a lot of emphasis being put upon these laps. And also for It's Shry, we have yellow flags out on the circuit. I think that may be because of Adal, but It's Shry through this complex, nearing the Anderson Bridge into turn 11 and turn 12. Look at this camera angle. It is illustrating the precision that is demanded of these drivers, and It's Shry with DRS wide open and with the checkered flag out in the knowledge that this is his final attempt. And with the championship crown becoming more permanent in the occupation of Dublin, he wants to at least illustrate his excellence. Dublin extending his stronghold onto pole position at 137.324. He streaks clear of the field. Traversport improving to P6. Understeer there for It's Shry. Into turn 20. This has not been the ideal qualifying session for It's Shry, but as he crosses the line, it doesn't get much better. P8 for the Alpine. And that is quite a shock. Technic Speedy will not be improving. Big Mama Frank certainly won't be improving. Rigraff though might. Currently running in P7. It looks like he will stay in 7th place as he comes into the pits. Adal won't be improving. But Cushy is the last pretender to Dublin's throne in qualifying around Singapore. But it did not look so crisp there for the Ferrari, and it seems like this is not a push lap. As we just make sure that nobody is going to be improving, we can confirm that the championship leader and the champion-elect nears supremacy, nears title glory. He needs to outscore. Yeah, he needs to outscore Shry by 25 points. He needs to outscore Wile by 9 points. My word, could he be in the box seat for that? He wouldn't win the championship with these positions, but around Singapore being in the middle of the pack for It's Shry, wowee, this could be a night to remember for him. So then, Dublin aces qualifying around Singapore on pole by just over 0.3 of a second. AlphaTauri 2nd and 3rd in qualifying. CVTX Mask, a stellar job for McLaren. P4 for him. Wile 5th. Traversport 6th. Rigraff 7th. It's Shry 8th. Adal 9th. And Cushy in 10th. By the way, anyone that is wondering about the Constructors' Championship standings, Red Bull have already won it. With 3 races left, their lead is unassailable. So, yep, it is just a focus on the Drivers' Championship. And although we may fear it may be a formality, brace yourselves for the Singapore Grand Prix ahead. Wait for wisdom and wonder. Wait for excitement and elation. And wait for supremacy and surprise. This is Singapore. It has delivered drama through the years. It will deliver drama tonight in the X Division here in Zoom Racing League. With a championship conclusion, with a champion to be crowned, and as everything like that nears, we wait for the propensity of its drama. So then, as the clock ticks down, the drivers will start their formation laps very, very soon. They will choose their setup. They will choose their race strategy. And from here on in, it will be a relentless ride of precision. But who can ace that precision? So the drivers starting their formation laps. Let's have a look at the choice of tyres. Dublin on the hards. Technic Speedy on the softer medium tyres. He is looking for the grip from the race start to gain track position and to perhaps be a thorn into the side of Dublin. Then we have everyone from Big Mama Frank down to Logan in 11th on the hards. We have Aero, Drunk X Sigs on the mediums. Leo Critis on the hards. And Stars FPS on the mediums. No one going for the softs. They obviously know that they will not be going far into this race. So alternate strategies between the front row. Dublin, of course, closing in on championship glory. Could this be his night? So weaving from left to right, gaining temperature in his tyres, knowing that tonight could be the night. This is going to be, frankly, thrilling. Underneath the bridge then, and towards the grid, nearing the grid, to line up in formation for the Singapore Grand Prix then. So then, our champion-elect arriving to the grid. As they near the start of this race, we have our drivers at the back trying to get in formation. Technic Speed has been disqualified from the formation lap. I suspect he hasn't aced his parking particularly well on the grid. But the drivers round the final corner and will join their competitors on the grid. So then, with the propensity of stardom to be delivered, we write its perhaps most profound chapter, and we will reach its destination. But in which way? As we are racing here in Singapore, Dublin gets the perfect start. He will lead into turn 1. You can see there almost contact between Technic Speedy and Wild, but Technic Speedy still ahead. Have they managed to escape contact through the first couple of corners? I think so. And Zero passing Adow through turns 4 and on towards turn 5, but Dublin still in the lead and by a long way. Big Mama Frank up to second, Technic Speedy third, and it looks like CVTX Mask in the McLaren through turn 5, spinning, dropping to the back of the pack. And after a very strong qualifying session, that is despair for the McLaren, whose efforts have been undone in a few corners of this race here. We ride on board with Logan, who looks to trouble Leo Critis, and he goes to the inside, rides the curb, and has to bail out of it. so he remains in P14 for the moment. Look at the big winners and big losers so far from this race. Logan, CVTX Mask, Drabaspor and Technic Speedy. And you can also see the big winners on the leaderboard there, but Dublin already stretching his advantage to beyond a second. He is in the groove, he is in the moves, and around Singapore he is closing in on Sensation. Logan passing Leocritus, and there's been contact between the pair, perhaps, as Stars FPS also spins, so maybe the Haas making contact with the Mercedes. But that's two spinners there through turn 14. And that drops them, the pair of them, down the order slightly. But Dublin leads then, and he leads by a distance ahead of Big Mama Frank, with Technic Speedy in third and Weil in fourth. We ride on board with Weil. After a perhaps disappointing qualifying session, he will look to at least improve to a podium place early on in this race and really start to gather momentum and perhaps gather potential for his race. On board with Regraf then in P6. You can see the predicted pit stop strategy below on your screen. We'll see how likely that will come about. Of course, we have the chance of a safety car, and that chance really does loom large as, that's Adal without a front wing. The Mercedes clipping the wall and clipping Drabaspor. The Aston Martin got involved with Mercedes shenanigans, and instead of fighting for P8, he's down the order, and there's Adal once again off the road and dropping slightly down the order. We have Aero now behind Drunk X6. The Haas has started well outside, definitely outside the top 10. He now runs firmly within it as Drabaspor passes Leocritus. So that's two Aston Martins now inside the top 10, which was the case a few months ago, but after a brief moment of agony for the Aston Martin, he improves, and the mistakes of Adal and the pass on Leocritus regains his position amongst the top 10 as CVTX Mask making a place on Adal. The Mercedes without a front wing and without chance, it seems. But Dublin once again publishing the fastest lap of the race so far. Big Mama Frank is about 1.5 seconds behind him. Technic Speedy is 3/10 behind his teammates. We start lap 3 of 31 here in Singapore. We can see Drunk X6 defending from Aero, taken to the inside into turn 1. He does not want to allow the Aston Martin past, but with the DRS zone looming, a move could be made. On board then with Aero within the slipstream of the Haas. Through Raffles Boulevard, is he able to make a move? The Haas defending to the inside. What can Aero do? He's going to look to the outside, and he looks to execute the move, but he runs out wide. He'll have to concede the place to Drunk X6, but only momentarily. The Haas still fighting valiantly and manages to maintain that position. Cushy thinking he had a chance to pass Aero. That chance did not come about, but while all that happens, Weil gained a place on Technic Speedy, so the AlphaTauri perhaps making an error. He's now under fierce pressure from Itchry, who runs in 5th. So a race that perhaps could have been promising in the first few laps for Technic Speedy, who started on the medium compound tyres. This start has gone rather astray. And here is Technic Speedy. Does he have any front wing damage? Perhaps no. But Itchry almost clipping the wall, almost gaining front wing damage, which would have been severe. And you can see Aero so late on the brakes going into turn 18. So close there, I believe, to Rigraff. To the Aston Martin now knocking himself outside of the top 10. And that brief mistake has been punished, and punished noticeably. So Drunk X6 still leading this pack, and we have yellow flags through the final sector. That's because Logan on pit entry. Wow, he's had a problem there, which may startle him just a bit. But now we have Cushy gaining on Drunk X6. 1 lap ago, the Haas was defending going into turn 7. He does the same again, and to the exact same effect. He is proving a barrier to potential of passing around Singapore. He is defending sublimely so far. And the drivers behind just aren't asking him taxing questions, or at least not taxing enough. On board with the Ferrari, you can still see the Haas within striking distance. As he turns into turn 13, Cushy, the Haas will start to race away on exit, but the Ferrari knows he has the speed. He knows he has the potential, but he wants the place, and wants it badly. Now it seems like Technic Speedy has gathered momentum, so I was going to say that Aero almost hit Rigraff. I believe it was actually Technic Speedy, but the AlphaTauri, who started of course from the front row, he wants to reassert himself in this race, and he's closing to within half a second of Wild. This, the battle for the final podium place. 2 Red Bulls, 2 AlphaTauris occupying the top 4 positions. And there's 1 Red Bull on the brink of glory, not quite on the edge of it yet. He knows some circumstances still have to go in his favour, but he is doing his bit. And you can see Technic Speedy clipping the wall through Raffles Boulevard. He's escaped damage, but he will not be getting away with that all that often. Cushy still running in the wheel tracks of Drunk X6. He's not able to make an impression going into turn 7 as Drunk X6 setting the fastest lap, then earning himself a time penalty. So the man that runs in 13th place, and for a driver that saw potential from this Singapore Grand Prix at the very beginning, well, 5 laps into this race, the potential has been shredded quite a little bit. Because she does seem a lot closer through the Anderson Bridge. But, Drunk X6 sort of CBTX Mars set the quickest up of the race. Drunk X6 earns himself a time penalty for track note violations, but Ken was so sudden. But he is still ahead of Cushy, and they will head on to the third sector. This is where it gets rather twisty. This is where mistakes are really, really punished. And it looks like Rigraff may have incurred damage to his front wing. He's struggling so much with understeer, indeed he does. End plate damage. The left-hand side of that end plate is damaged. He will come into the pits, will Rigraff, and he will drop out of the position that he so valiantly held earlier on. So still, Drunk X6 leads a train of drivers. He's ahead of Cushy and Drabaspor and Leo Kritis. These 4 separated by, well, just over a second. Does Cushy finally have his chance? The Haas looking oh so larger in his mirrors, and through Raffles Boulevard, the Ferrari easily has the place. On towards turn 7, the Haas just does not have a response. And Leo Kritis, is he able to make a move? I don't think he is. Off at the exit of turn 7, he may have spotted a chance, but that chance was not able to come about. So Cushy then advancing past the Haas of Drunk X6, and the Haas running ahead of Drabaspor. But for how much longer? This is a terrific battle brewing, and the Haas clipping the wall. It's not going to do him any good, and the Aston Martin still within touching distance through the exit then of turn 13 with DRS wide open. Drunk X6 though able to nullify the threat from behind as he has DRS open himself. The Haas does look to be lacking a little bit of pace compared to those around him. Maybe those medium compound tyres are starting to wear a little thin on grip. But after a not so promising qualifying session, he has raced really well in these opening laps and has delivered some fantastic action so far. But out in front, Dublin still leads, and leads comfortably. The gap at just over 2 seconds. And he will hope to extend a gap to Big Mama Frank, which maybe, just maybe, will able to go beyond an undercut threat, noticing that the grip, this is a very traction limited circuit, so the undercut is powerful, proven by Sebastian Vettel in 2019, where he gained 4 seconds on Charles Leclerc just by pitting a lap earlier. So we know that grip is thirsted for around this circuit. But for Drabospor, P7 is a position thirsted, and to the inside of turn 7, he looks to claim that position, and he makes contact with Drunk X6. The Haas advances ahead after momentarily touching with the Aston Martin. Is there damage to either of the drivers? We will hope not. But still, the Haas runs ahead. And still Drabospor will look on in grief. Things may be about to get feisty between these three through the Anderson Bridge. The Aston Martin trying to open up the corner, the Haas struggling. It's the race towards turn 14. Drunk X6 trying to pull out of the slipstream. Drabospor chances a move to the inside. He knows he's not close enough though. So the battle will continue on then towards lap 8. It doesn't seem like the Haas has any front wing damage. We know he is struggling with a bit of speed at the moment. Maybe those medium compound tyres have had their honeymoon period, and that they have seen him as far and as competitive into the race as they could possibly do. But Cushy has really raced away from this pack. He's over 3 seconds ahead of the Haas of Drunk X6, but Drabospor closing in down the start-finish straight into turn 1. The Haas defending to the inside. Can the Aston Martin catch him out? Offline, not for the moment. There is a DRS zone looming, and he will look to battle past. With DRS wide open once more. The Haas defending once more, and they're going to battle away on towards turn 7 through Raffles Boulevard once more. The Haas to the inside, the Aston Martin having to play the patient game, but on exit, he gets a very promising exit, but not promising enough to really trouble the Haas. This battle proving labouring, tricky and treacherous for the Aston Martin. He just can't battle past. He was unlucky a lap ago, I must admit, but he has not been able to make that 7th position his own. But through the Anderson Bridge, the Haas still struggling. He looks to open up the corner, does Drabospor, and on exit he puts the power down. He looks a lot closer, but a lot of wheel spin off of the exit. Will that curtail his efforts going into turn 14? Down the inside he dares, and the Aston Martin progresses past the Haas. At long last, he makes 7th place his own, but Drunk X6 tapping him. These two have got as close as they could possibly dare in this battle. But for now, the upper hand lies with the Aston Martin. Technic Speedy, meanwhile, has earned himself a time penalty for track limits violations, and Dublin has strengthened his lead to about 3 seconds. So we start lap 9 of 31 here in Singapore with Leo Kreitis closing in on Drunk X6 through the first couple of corners. The Haas already a second behind Drabospor. That will give an incentive to Leo Kreitis to battle past him into Raffles Boulevard, but he won't get that chance as he hits the wall and loses part of his front wing. And the Haas sighs a profound sigh of relief. Ferrari incurring damage, a wounded front wing, and an injured chance of promising results in this race. And going into turn 8, he locks up his race. His efforts have been undone in a mere 30 seconds of a nightmare. We have yellow flags out in sector 1. Logan once more losing a front wing, and the safety car, the full safety car then, has been deployed. Well then, this may just be where the race starts to spice up. This may just be where the race turns on its head. Technic Speedy taking the chance to now pit to get rid of the medium compound tyres to serve his time penalty. And after a troublesome first few laps for the AlphaTauri. Has he been granted a chance in this race? And they're not actually going to make him serve the time penalty, but he gets a free cheap pit stop, and it looks like he will re-emerge on track in 6th place, but down the start-finish straight. This will be close between Traversport and Technic Speedy. Oh, it's going to be so close. Who's going to emerge ahead? It's going to be Traversport as the AlphaTauri actually exits the pit lane onto the track. So he's crossed the pit lane line. I wonder if the stewards will get involved in that. I don't think they will, but that could prove troublesome there for Technic Speedy. We have time penalties for track limit violations for stars. So then, we creep towards a third distance in this Grand Prix. And could this Singapore Grand Prix really have started to turn on its head? Dublin still leads, but his lead will be slashed. Big Mama Frank perhaps standing a chance, while in third. For the moment, the title fight would be delayed, or the title clinching moment would be delayed provisionally, as Weil sits in P3, Itchry sits in P4. So Itchry is the man for the moment, who would delay Dublin's moment of championship glory. It's a race that has seen momentary moments of action, may just be about to deliver more. This is where the race starts to really get interesting. This is where momentum gathers. This is where the drama gathers. And this is where all your schedules are thrown out of the window. Whatever you plan to do, make sure you don't go anywhere, because as we clear a third distance in this race, we have, frankly, a thrilling ride to be enjoyed to the very end. So then, if you've just joined us for this Zoom Racing League Singapore Grand Prix, thank you for your company, and we hope to treat you to an epic next chapter of this Singapore Grand Prix, with our race leader looking to perhaps seize the championship in Singapore. He knows that a race lead is perhaps under threat under the safety car period, but he knows that he is still in pole position to at least extend his championship lead and place himself as favourite to claim it next week. But there are still many twists and turns to be realised. We started with 15, and around Singapore we still have 15. So the drivers have kept it relatively clean so far. And although we are only a third way through this race, all our challengers still stand as one. Seems like Drunk X6 is coming into the pits then in the Haas to get rid of his soft compound tyres. Very slow on pit entry, that's because he doesn't want to risk earning himself a penalty. He will be stopping on his marks. He will probably That's going to be close with his teammates, but he will probably emerge ahead. He's serving a time penalty as well, so he wants to get rid of that. And he will change then to another set of soft compound tyres. But how close is this going to be with his teammate? They're going to battle it down on towards turn 1. And it looks like Logan will leap ahead of his teammate then. So Drunk X6 now down into P14. And it looks like he clipped the wall slightly. Whether he escaped damage or not, that's a question to be answered. And again there through the exit of turn 3. As the crowd raise their fists and gather inspiration, they will see the drivers before them race away onto lap 13 of 31. A safety car coming into the pits at the conclusion of this lap. And Dublin has his chance to reassert his supremacy in this race once more. When does he choose to go then? There is a series of corners coming up. Dublin wants to be able to stretch away from Big Mama Frank as soon as possible. We ride on board with the AlphaTauri. Can he run the Red Bull close? This is a moment of truth, and it seems like Dublin has absolutely aced this restart, and he races away from the AlphaTauri, but he runs up wide. It looked like it would be a moment of success from the Red Bull as he raced away from those behind him. But this race turns on its head. The race lead, the battle for the race lead turns on its head. And Dublin is left with it to do. He has a driver out in front to pass. He has a win to claim. And for the first time in this race, he is without his race lead, which he has peerlessly held on to since the very get-go. Here's Adel trying to pounce upon Aero in the battle for 7th place. The Aston Martin still running ahead. The Mercedes running so close to the green machine. Still the Aston Martin defending, and with all his might for Adel, spotting an opportunity. They're going to go side by side. There's a bit of contact between the pair, but the Mercedes progresses past. So Aero now defending from Rigrath in the Alfa Romeo, and you can see there Trabzonspor clipping the wall, dropping down the order and possibly suffering damage. So Drunk X6 ahead of Leo Kreitis. Trabzonspor late on the brakes, but not late enough to pass Leo Kreitis. This still on track. This is a frantic safety car restart here in Singapore, and it seems like Rigrath may have front wing damage. Indeed he does. For the second time in this Grand Prix, the Alfa Romeo has incurred damage to his front end. And he drops down into P13, and his fantastic drive, his fantastic performance so far has been undone. And there is Drunk X6 colliding with Aero through the final corner. It's an unconventional place for overtakes to be made, but it puts him within the mercy of Leo Kreitis. The Ferrari to the inside of turn 1. They're battling it away. And it seems like there's Cushy who has spun. There's drama, absolute melodrama taking place everywhere, through every passing corner, through every possible moment. There are battles being had here in Marina Bay. CVTX Mask closing in on Trabzonspor. This now the battle for P11 and P12. And this has been a frankly hectic restart to this race. We have found the action, we have found the drama, and it has spiced up proceedings. There is Cushy and Drunk X6 running side by side. The Haas to the inside. The Haas advancing ahead. Cushy now down in P9 after spinning through the exit of turn 3, and now Aero spinning through the exit of turn 13. This place is bubbling with blistering drama, with end-to-end action. Zoom Racing League, with perhaps without so much tension earlier on, is making up for it and is delivering it in an incalculable way. So then, Big Mama Frank still leading, but Dublin with DRS on this lap will look to close in. These two are racing away from those behind, and Dublin is closing in on Big Mama Frank. He started this race from pole. He relinquished the race lead in a very surprising error at the safety car restart. But now it is down to his racecraft. It is down to his nous to claim back what he lost on the AlphaTauri just a few laps ago. The tide has turned. The scene has changed. And Zoom Racing League has gripped this moment with incalculable drama. As we close in on half distance to this race, Dublin still troubling Big Mama Frank. The Red Bull searching for the racing line, searching for an opportunity, demanding the race lead as Technic Speedy tapping the wall, somehow escaping front wing damage. And Dublin's really close now. Onto lap 16 of 31. Dublin has really closed in through this final sector. Weil waits in the wings, but it is left to the lead Red Bull to claim back a lead that was his precious possession for the first dozen laps of this Singapore Grand Prix. A race of domination morphs into a race of determination, and he is determined, is Dublin, to claim the race lead back. Technic Speedy passes its stride then, the AlphaTauri ahead of the Alpine. Seems like they're enjoying a very engrossing jostle for 4th and 5th. But our eyes remain transfixed on this battle for the lead. On towards the Anderson Bridge, the Red Bull closing in on the AlphaTauri. And we have CVTX Mask closing in on Traversport. This is part of a train that is being possibly led by Drunk X6, who's really been on the defensive throughout this race. And with an exit like that through turn 13, Cushy can sense and smell an opportunity to claim 7th place. Oh, and this is getting so close now. Weil is closing in on not only his teammate, but Big Mama Frank as well. A three-way scrap for the lead here in Singapore. Like I said earlier, the landscape has altered and Weil is pitting. He's triggering the undercut on his teammates, on the race leader. The landscape of this race, the setting shifts. And it looks like Weil's put on the intermediate tyres. He has not. He has. That is nonplussing there from Red Bull. They've pitted Weil to the intermediate tyres. And that is because the rain is falling. That's fallen instantly, actually. So this could be a moment of inspiration, but it did seem a bit too dry. it did seem a bit too dry, but with rain falling, this is where a moment of optimism, a moment of measurements may collide. You've got to ace these conditions, you've got to keep a cool head, you've got to keep it on track. Grip, speed is one thing, but keeping a cool head is another. And Dublin closing in then on Big Mama Frank into turn 14. Is he going to chance a move? No, he isn't. But the rain is falling and falling quick. I thought there that it was a moment of madness from Weil. It may prove to be a moment of inspiration, but he will have to get these tyres up to temperature. He will have to be setting the lap times. But will he? Will he? That is the million-dollar question right now. And Big Mama Frank still leading this race for Vital. A pair of them going to pit at the conclusion of this lap. Neither of them are. I said the landscape of this race had shifted. We're in a different universe now. Already a fiendishly difficult circuit to conquer is turning into a storm of sensation. Dublin with DRS closing in on Big Mama Frank. On lap 18 of 31 here in Singapore, he's late on the brakes going into turn 7. He'll lose a little bit of momentum off the exits, but he'll still be within touching distances. Cushy trying to make an impression on Drunk X6. They progress on towards turn 7. The Ferrari to the inside battles past the Haas. And Drunk X6 having to relinquish the place, but looks to the outside of turn 8. He's not able to make the move. And there is Leo Kreiter struggling on exit. CVTX Mars looking to battle past him. Technic Speedy is pitted, and he has emerged ahead of Weil then. We have Stars FPS pitting as well as Aero. He pitted a few moments ago. We now have Villa flags out through Sector 2. That's Logan. Through the Anderson Bridge once more. The Haas spinning around. And the Haas untying the chains which have restricted any momentum that he wished to have so far in this race. CVTX Master now past Leo Kreiter then. The Ferrari is really struggling now. The Haas, the McLaren, sorry, up into P7, but is letting the Ferrari through, and in doing so is let Travis fall through as well, but he's gone deep into turn 18 and he's lost a handful of positions as well. We cannot stress enough how much the setting has altered here in Singapore. DRS actually has now been disabled. That's going to make passing a bit more tricky, but that illustrates that the rain is intensifying. And Big Mama Frank and Dublin are only a third of the way through the lap, so they're going to be without so much grip. They're going to lose heaps of time. The AlphaTauri still ahead of Dublin. Dublin has stared down the rear wing of that AlphaTauri for a number of laps now. It's exasperating, it's taxing, it's labouring for the Red Bull. He can sniff the race lead. But as he's not on intermediate tyres, he's not on the preferred tyres. And they could lose out the front two noticeably. In this period of the race, we have the flags out on track with Aero spinning around on towards turn 4. But Big Mama Frank actually seems more comfortable in these conditions. Dublin is just nursing his Red Bull, keeping it on the road, knowing that he does not want to incur damage to his championship lead. Surely it's the sensible decision for the pair of them to pit. A layer of precipitation lies upon the surface here in Marina Bay in Dublin, getting a swapper on exit, but Big Mama Frank staying out on track. The race leader is chancing a moment that could define his race. Dublin pitting then. It's Schreier pitting as well. Adao will pit as well. The lead driver on the Inters is Technic Speedy. Weil is just behind him. This is going to be so close. The Red Bull has already pitted. He will inch towards the end of the pit lane. Oh, how close is this going to be? This could be the race right here. Dublin comes to the exit of the pit lane into turn 3, and he's ahead of Technic Speedy. And as Weil pits as well for a new set of intermediates, his race taking a turn for the worst, but Dublin will now have to get his tyres up to temperature with a gap at about 2 seconds. Rain has fallen here in Singapore. And the potential of this race has shifted profoundly. Dublin really struggling for grip at the moment. Obviously, he's not got those tyres up to the temperature range that he will want just yet, but he's maintaining a healthy gap to Technic Speedy, and Big Mama Frank still out on track. The Red Bull of Dublin may just be granted the race lead. He has made this phase of the race count. He really has. And as long as he keeps it on the island, he should be seizing back control of a race that he lost just about 10 laps ago. But the AlphaTauri of Big Mama Frank pitting, and after all the work he had put into taking the race lead, he's about to possibly lose it. So then through the final corner now for Dublin, onto the start-finish straight as Big Mama Frank will clear the pit lane. Dublin passes him with ease, but Big Mama Frank will also come up behind Technic Speedy. That is gut-wrenching. That really is gut-wrenching for Big Mama Frank. He could have pitted a lap ago. He could have maintained control of this Grand Prix. But instead he lies 5 seconds behind Dublin. Dublin leading them by about 2 seconds now. So then rain is still intensifying around this circuit as CVTX Mask are closing in on Drunk X6. It's the battle for 7th and 8th place in this race. The McLaren exuding a lot more confidence, but is not able to seize the initiative just yet. Now that Weil has made an extra pit stop as well, he's outside of the top 10. And in a race where he was inching towards his teammates and perhaps the race win, that feels a distant feeling and is overcome by one of dismay. These drivers are really managing this race well to keep it on the track still. We have 10 laps to go in this Singapore Grand Prix, and with Dublin leading, he is closing in on race victory. He is, despite his shortcoming of that safety car restart, he has managed this race well to seize back the race lead. Let's focus on the closest battle out on track at the moment. Drunk X6 ahead of CVTX Mask. The Haasers run a race of defence so far in this race, and the McLaren so close to making contact with him. The rear wing of the Haas has become an image for many drivers' Grand Prix so far, but CVTX Mask with a healthy exit off of turn 5, and he looks to pass the Haas on towards turn 7. Around the outside perhaps, again they get fractionally close to contact, and again Drunk X6 holding the initiative, holding the upper hand off of the exit of turn 7, with CVTX Mask with a loose rear end, which is troubling him slightly as Trabzonspor and Logan ignite in battle. The Haas running ahead of Trabzonspor. We ride on board then with the green machine, running with, well, momentarily within half a second of the Haas. It is ebbing and flowing corner after corner, and the Haas really struggling on towards the Anderson Bridge. Can Trabzonspor spot an opportunity? They're both going to open up the corner through turn 13 as the Haas clips the wall. The exit is healthy enough for Logan to at least maintain his advantage to Trabzonspor. And by the time they come into turn 14, the occupation of 12th place for Logan is still relatively comfortable. Drunk X6 still running ahead of CVTX Mask. Their battle prolongs and perpetuates onto lap 23 of 31 of this Singapore Grand Prix. Trabzonspor still behind Logan. Rigrath very much in the battle. A three-way scrap for 12th place. Now off the exit of turn 5 again, the Haas struggles, but the McLaren with $1 of oversteer off of the exit may just be consigned to P8 off of the exit of turn 7 once more. And it's becoming a sickening sight, is it, of that Haas rear wing. And here we go. Rigrath actually now really close to Trabzonspor. They're going to battle on towards turn 7. Off of the exit, the Alfa Romeo closing in, inching towards Trabzonspor. But the track tightens up and moves through this particular section of track. Is tricky, and Logan losing the car, losing the rear end, and losing P12. Trabzonspor and Rigrath both pass him. And those two are released as the Haas, well, it's another error to add to his tally here in Singapore, and he has a damaged front wing as well. And his race is turning rather expensive. It seems like Technic Speedy, although he has a 3-second time penalty, it seems like he is closing in on Dublin, but whether he is troubling the Red Bull, that's another question. The race leader, who after starting from pole was driven a very decent race so far, as Technic Speedy, again earns himself a time penalty, and that very much puts him out of contention momentarily for the race win. As you can see, CVTX Mask battling away with the rhythm of his car through turn 22 and turn 23 as Rigrath passes Trabzonspor going into this complex. But again, it's another driver with a rear end getting loose through the final corner of this Marina Bay circuit. Trabzonspor will look to claim back that place into turn 3. Doesn't seem like he's close enough, but CVTX Mask again running behind the Haas. And that trend will continue into the next couple of corners, but because he's just not close enough. His exits off of turn 5 have not been disturbing enough for Drunk X6. Trabzonspor looking to reclaim a place on Rigrath, but it's not coming about at the moment. The rain's still really intense around this track. It can't be an awful long way away from the full wet tyres. And Trabzonspor may have just illustrated why. A massive tank slapper on towards turn 9. Again, he remains in the battle with the Alfa Romeo as they pass through the Anderson Bridge. Oh, that was so close to the wall. As CVTX Mask passing Drunk X6, and that's because the Haas perhaps spinning, or at least incurring a moment of misery into turn 14. And the Haas now in 10th as Weil breathing down his neck, but the Red Bull has just not had the race that he would have favoured. Strategy undone. Strategy undone noticeably, and he's down at the moment in P11. So it seems like while will be out of this championship battle. So Schreier is the only driver that, if the race ended like this, he's the only driver that could stop Dublin bathing in title glory. CVTX Mask now running ahead of Leo Kreitis. The Ferrari still adorning its traditions and retro heritage in the Formula 1 2022 game. It looks absolutely stunning, but the weight of history may just be impulsing the Ferrari to battle past the McLaren. These two constructors have battled it out fiercely through the years. Both teams coming out on top. Both teams embroiled in agony at times as well. It is the McLaren that holds the upper hand in this battle. Of course, we have Cushy running in P6 ahead of the pair of them. At 26 of 31 then, 6 more tours of this Marina Bay street circuit to be enjoyed for our race leader, who leads by 2.7 seconds, but with time penalties to be applied, it really is more of a 5.5 second gap to his nearest challenger, Big Mama Frank. We had a period of really interesting action. When the rain came, it looked to mount a challenge to those who thought they had conquered. But Dublin, a man of prodigious ability, has mastered most moments, most challenges so far. He leads out in front and is closing in once more. Leo Kreitis has just had a horrid lap. He is now 3 seconds behind CVTX Mask and has Stars FPS hunting him down. The McLaren of CVTX Mask showing his speed now, which has put an end to any hope of battle between him and the Ferrari. Although he could have his sights set upon Cushy ahead, but he would be having to eat into Cushy's leads by about 1.5 seconds per lap, and that's, as good as Leo Kreitis may be, that is a monumental effort. Here with a bird's eye view of the circuit, and with the Ferrari of Leo Kreitis still ahead of Stars FPS, but really struggling off of the exit of turn 13. A lot of understeer in that Ferrari, and the silver arrow looks to shimmer in this battle. Dublin leading by over 3 seconds now, but still we look at this battle between Leo Kreitis and Stars FPS. Leo Kreitis hits the wall. This is as close as Stars has been to the Ferrari, and into, it seems, their turn 20. He will make the move, and so too will Drunk X6. So the Ferrari losing 3 places as Wild passes him as well, up into 10th place. But Stars FPS ahead of Drunk X6, ahead of Wild, ahead of Leo Kreitis. That's a punishing mistake there from the Ferrari. The Stars FPS ahead of the Haas of Drunk X6. They will battle it out as the Silver Arrow really struggling off of turn 3. The Haas spotting an opportunity. They tap each other once. They almost tap into each other twice. But the Mercedes holding the advantage. We have yellow flags out on track. It's Logan once more. And the safety car again has been deployed. And Logan, who has lost his front wing once more, has littered debris onto the track. And that means we may just have a thrilling ending ahead of us. Lap 27 of 31. We now have about 4.5 laps left, so we may have a 1 or 2 lap shootout to the conclusion, to the checkered flag of this race. And as the order look to be perhaps cemented, it may just still be revised. So lap 28 of 31. Now, I don't think anybody outside of Logan is going to take the opportunity to pit. Adal surprises me, as he hasn't pitted, as he has a bit of a gap to Cushy, but maybe that gap would not sustain. And of course, getting tyres up to temperature in the wet can be a very tricky task. But while passing Stars, what's the Mercedes been up to? Seems like there's a bit of confusion amongst these three. And the Mercedes, having lost his front wing, may just pit, and he will. So Stars will drop out of the top 10, it seems, to get rid of his front wing, to bolt on a new nose and a new set of tyres. And there he goes, Dravotspor earning himself a time penalty due to track limit violations, which has been a feature not only in this race but so far this season. And my word, the rain is getting heavier. Look at that AlphaTauri, the spots of rain of it. We cannot be far away from extreme wet weather tyres. Of course, I can't see anyone pitting for them now, but we cannot be far away. Technic Speeds just trying to put Dublin off momentarily. Of course, remember that Technic Speedy does have a time penalty to be served at the conclusion of this race. Oh, Logan trying to unlap himself. Oh, and he got so close there to Big Mama Frank. That could have been disaster for the AlphaTauri. That could have been frustration for the Haas as he looks to unlap himself. Oh, don't pass Dublin there. This could get very, very tight, but Logan now unlapping himself, passing the safety car and thundering into the pits wall. Out of this race, putting behind him a disastrous ride of agony and despair. Logan's race conclusion has been written on the wall, quite literally. The drivers remain behind the safety cars. We have 3 more laps here in Singapore, with Dublin still leading. I suspect the safety car will be coming into the pits at the conclusion of this lap. Rick Raff now earning himself a time penalty. You've guessed it, for track limit violations. But this is crunch time, with the checkered flag nearing. This is where measure is something of the essence. This is where the thirst for glory, the thirst for success may just take over. Under the rain, under the lights, under the spotlight here in Marina Bay. This could be a Grand Prix ending for the ages. Dublin leading. For the moment, he wouldn't take the championship at this moment. He needs Itchry to drop to 11th place, and Itchry is inside the top 4. So the title celebrations may just be delayed. Having said that, Itchry does have a time penalty, and you never know, of course. So then, 2 laps to the checkered flag. The last safety car restart was one of hell for Dublin. He relinquished the race lead. He does not want to repeat that same mistake this time around, as he nears the race victory. That winner's trophy feels almost tangible to him. He has the AlphaTauri, or a pair of AlphaTauris behind him. He has a million lights on him, adorning perhaps his success. And as he orchestrates his way towards a possible race victory, which may just unlock the key to his championship here in Zoom Racing League X Division, he just wants to hold possession of that key. And for the final 2 laps here in Singapore, we are racing. It doesn't seem like it's the best start from him, but CVTX Must clipping the wall and hit there by Stars FPS. So the McLaren out of this race. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mercedes has been knocked out of contention as well. But Dublin really struggling. Big Mama Frank dropping down to P6, then It's Shry and Adal now going side by side in the battle for the final podium place. The Alpine running ahead, but Adal on exits of turn 5. He looks to make an impression. He's not able to make one just yet. So Big Mama Frank from P3 down into P6 with the rostrum place. Perhaps gearing into potential. It now may just be an endeavour and a source of wishful thinking for the Alpha Tauri, but Dublin still holding onto the lead. Technic Speedy running him relatively close. It's Shry third, of course he has that time penalty to be served as well. Adal fourth, Cushy fifth, Big Mama Frank 6th. We put on the time penalties as well. Adal closing in on It's Shry off of the exit of Anderson Bridge and off of the exit of turn 13. It doesn't seem like he's close enough though, and the exit off of turn 13 is a healthy one for the Alpine. Leocritus passing Stars FPS, and the Mercedes, after hitting CVTX Mask unfortunately off of the exit of turn 21 just a few moments ago, is now down in P13. But Dublin out on his own, out in the lead, with Technic Speedy having a 6-second time penalty to be served. It's him on his own for Dublin. Big Mama Frank closing in on Cushy. There are still some battles to be decided on this final lap, and you can see there, one AlphaTauri hitting the wall, another AlphaTauri hitting the wall. Both Technic Speedy and Big Mama Frank have hit the wall at the end of the penultimate lap of this race. So It's Shry then up into second place. Seems like he will still, or might be able to finish on the podium as Technic Speedy, losing the place to Rigrath. And this race that yielded so much promise for AlphaTauri is being done in a nail-biting conclusion. Draverspor closing in on him, Cushy closing in on Adal. Could the Ferrari be on for a podium place here in Singapore? Adal could also be on for a highly unlikely finish after starting from P9. Runners in second, third and fourth started P8, P9 and P10 respectively. So it's been a valiant comeback from all three of them. Drunk X6 again on the defensive. This has been the definition of his race. The Alfa Romeo of Rigrath wanting to close in, wanting to pass him, progressing onto the Anderson Bridge now. Oh, he's almost shoving him around the corners. It's the Alfa Romeo as Technic Speedy retires from this race. We focus on Rigrath, who around the outside of turn 13 chances a move on the Haas. Is he able to make it stick? This would be a move of pure optimism, of pure execution. The Haas around the outside of turn 14 though keeps Rigrath at bay. What a fantastic battle being contested between these two. Which, and there's the Alfa Romeo making contact there with the Haas. But out in front, it is our champion-elect. It seems like he's disconnected from this session. But as he inches towards title glory, he is dancing in the dark in Singapore. And he really has unlocked the key to title glory. Adal finishes second. It's Shry in P3 ahead of Cushy, who misses out on a rostrum finish by a tenth of a second. That's agonising there for him as Weil crashing into the wall just after the checkered flag as Leocritus and Big Mama Frank going side by side towards the line. And again, we have another driver through the final corner hitting the wall, and Leocritus demoted down into P12. But the night belongs to Dublin, and it may just be a formality of his championship winning glory now. So then, there we go. Dublin again, reigning supreme. What a job by him, and what a stellar race that was. Singapore never ceases to deliver, and hopefully we will know why tomorrow. But Dublin, your winner once more around Singapore. I am going to head off, ladies and gentlemen, but thank you so very much for your company. It's been a frantic event with so much being delivered. But in the end, it is Dublin again, who wins the Grand Prix. What a job by him. And he could just seize the championship next Saturday. And make sure you do not miss perhaps that moment of glory. Make sure you tune in for the X Division of Zoom Racing League once more. And if it's anything like this race, when perhaps drama feels a distant feeling, it can always be revived in this racing league. But thank you so very much for your company, ladies and gentlemen. And until next time, goodbye.